Welcome to the Working Women's Channel. My name is Clara Capano, and we're going to share the real secrets to success. Come on in. Welcome to today's episode of the Working Women Channel. Today we are going to be talking about being a business owner, a female business owner, and being able to bring in your heart and your intuition into that workspace a little bit more. And today I have my wonderful guest, Austin. Austin, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we were connected by a mutual friend, and I said, I want stories of empowerment and teaching women about owning their own strength and authenticity. She said, you have to call Austin and have to have her on the show. And so I'm glad that it worked out and that you can be here.
Well, I love that I get to be a part of any of those words, and especially with Renee, our mutual friend.
I want to dive into this concept of success because we're here to talk about women in business and what it means to be successful. And we know that sometimes the road to success has challenges and obstacles. So can you think about a time where maybe on your path to success, you ran into some obstacles, and how did you face those and get over those?
Yeah, well, I started this business, self-defense and yoga, in 2019, and very quickly, our lovely friend COVID decided to show up, yes. Which is a big obstacle that I'm sure everybody is talking about. So being able to pivot the business that is very, personal and in person to an online platform was a huge challenge. Mm-hmm. As we're stepping into this growth in the business and kind of stepping away from the virtual world, really, for me, it's the imposter syndrome sometimes that comes up, and staying motivated and being able to balance the personal life and the business life is probably the biggest challenge right now.
It is. And so, we'll talk about that and how we work to do that, because I think that's a challenge for so many of us. Going back to this idea of bringing self-defense and yoga together. So tell me how that idea came together and how you created this.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in martial arts and self-defense. A good friend of mine is very much in that world, but it felt very intimidating. 4 years ago, I was assaulted and was interested in learning some of those skills, and going to the gyms just felt very inaccessible and not sustainable, with a lot of large cis white men yelling at you and telling you what to do with your body. Sure. It didn't feel safe. And I've been in the yoga world teaching and practicing for 7 years, and it's definitely saved my life more than once. And so just being able to connect with our bodies and create a safe space for women to be able to tap into martial arts, because it can be a very not warm and welcoming place for women.
I think that is just so impactful and really important for people to understand, because I think the martial arts, again, can be very intimidating. And I love what you said, that, it has saved you more than once. And I know I've talked about yoga. That was my saving grace after my divorce. And, it's that healing. And I think especially from coming out of a situation like yours where you were assaulted, there is a lot of healing that has to go on. So I bet that was a place that kind of brought you peace.
Yeah, and just being able to connect back with your body after, even just after COVID and everything we've all been living through, is really impactful, and being able to tap into some of that self-defense and martial arts that women don't have access to as much.
So let's talk about our friend COVID here, because I faced the same thing. Being a speaker and a trainer, had to pivot. So what were some of the things that you did to help you pivot and still stay successful?
Yeah, I really utilized that time to dial in the business plan. I took some business classes through Mikasa Resource Center, which has been a huge support in this business. I was expelled from school when I was 16, so I didn't take the traditional route of school and everything. So I buckled down, wrote the business plan, and started the process of the business loans, and then created a virtual platform for women. So we were, having Boss Babe meetups on there, and cooking classes and pleasure classes, self-massage. It was just a place where we could all meet via Zoom, and have a little bit of normalcy in our lives during that time.
Yeah, and I think, so many of us had to learn how to keep those connections and continue to add value and show up for our people in different ways. And I think in many ways, it taught me how to show up differently and even more valuable. things I'd never thought about before, and that allowed me to serve and give on a different level. So let's dive back into running a business, and especially running a business from a woman's standpoint. What do you think are some of the differences in being a female entrepreneur versus being a male entrepreneur?
One of the biggest differences that I love is I feel like these female entrepreneurs are really leading from their heart, and they care about their impacts and what their business's impact will be on the future. I think that women are creating businesses to support and empower and heal, and I think that that is something I love that I get to be a part of. Still though, like my name is Austin, which sometimes I'll hop on a Zoom meeting with like someone in the finance world and they're like, oh, we're just waiting for Austin. I'm like, yeah, I'm right here. And so I think I get some of those questions more than a male business owner would, and just having to show up differently. Right now, I said we're in the process of a business loan, and it's almost like you have to water down a little bit and make it a little bit more male friendly, some of the things that we're doing, which is hard being a woman in business, and making sure that everyone can understand where we're coming from.
It's so true. And I think it's absolutely beautiful what you said about women leading from our heart. And that's what I've experienced, and that's what really motivated me to do shows like these, is to really tap into that and to show that there still is strength even when you're leading from your intuition and your heart. And I've experienced the same things. It's, again, nothing against men. I think it's just society. It is viewed differently. And I think sometimes they have these notions that we're going to be overly emotional or whatever it may be. And sometimes they feel they have to handle us differently. And we're showing up and letting them know, that we're here. And I know that the number of female-run businesses is definitely growing at a very rapid pace. So that's something to be excited and proud of.
Absolutely. And, like getting to have a human experience while running a business is so beautiful and important. And I think that that is what consumers want at this point as well, especially as we're coming out of this pandemic.
Absolutely. I always say that outside of food, clothing, and shelter, human connection is the next basic human need. And I do think that is something that many of us are bringing. It's bringing that, that vulnerability piece, that honest piece, that truth and authenticity that has been missing before. So I think it's a wonderful way, and you've obviously created a space that is doing that. So let's talk about and back up a little bit, because you had brought up some of the challenges, and one of the ones that you talked about is this idea of balance. So what are some of the things that you are challenged with in that area of balance?
Yeah, so I think for a long time I told myself a story of like I can't have both a successful business and a successful relationship, probably because it was never modeled to me growing up. And so I'm really working through that right now, and being able to show up for myself wholly and fill my cup to be able to work on this business. I'm very intentional when I sit down to work on things, and same thing in a relationship. And so sometimes it's like at the end of the day, working all day and holding space for so many women. And we also work with teens. We do a lot of work in middle schools and high schools with self-defense. By the end of the day, like I'm tapped, I'm done, and it's hard to show up for a relationship and for yourself. So I don't know what the secret is. I haven't quite figured that out, but I know that I'm actively working on it, and it feels good to be aware of those things and know that you can have both. And it's okay if the days look differently sometimes.
It does, and I think that's something where we have to start understanding we can write our own rules. It doesn't have to look the same way. Again, you can have long distance relationships now, and they can be great. It can look any way that you want it so that it works for you.
And you can also turn on your out of office on your emails and not respond to calls after a certain time. That's been a big one for me. Like I close my computer at 5 and I'm done.
Good for you.
So
yeah, because it is. And I always try to say, let's look to find the harmony rather than the balance and bringing it all together. And I think when you start being honest with yourself about what you need, what you're going to accept, and opening it, then it makes space for the right people to come in. And I used to always joke that I could do 3 things really well. Like I could run my work, I could be a good mom, I could be a good friend. But if I wanted a relationship, which one of these was going to go? And it's learning how to, again, say, okay, how do we make all of this work? And what is the give and take and some of the trade-offs? So in running your business, let's talk about that for a minute. Obviously a trade-off is maybe the relationship and, looking at that, but what are some other trade-offs that you've had to make along the way for success?
A lot of time is going into like the business loan and this process of finding like the perfect building and the build out. And I'm still bartending in the evenings and teaching kids during the day. So I think a big trade-off is like my free time almost. And right now I'm stepping back from teaching so I can really like dive into what needs to be done in this last quarter of the year so we can push through. And that's been a really hard choice to make because I love working with teens and I love the work that I get to do with them. But I know that cultivating this business is where I want to be. And by doing these tasks that I like to put off right now because they're not my favorite, it's creating space for what I want to be doing in the future.
And I think that's really important that we remember to keep our eye on the big picture, that today is not your forever reality. And just because you have to take a step backwards today, it's going to allow you to do more later. And I think that, as women, we have to understand it's not always about doing everything, that sometimes you have to hit the pause button in certain areas. I want to talk about what you are working on because you've alluded to finding this new space. So I would love for you to share sort of what's on the horizon and what you're creating.
Yeah, so originally, we started this business as Warrior Women, self-defense and yoga for women through a trauma-informed and accessible lens. And in doing that, the classes really blew up. They were big and beautiful and created such an amazing community. And then it was like everyone that was coming to the classes wanted more, which I'm so grateful for. Mm-hmm. So I decided to create a women's wellness center, a whole trauma-informed women's wellness center. And it will be called Fire and Root Collective, which is what we've pivoted the business name over to at this point. And so what that looks like is you walk in and there will be 2 movement spaces, one a little bit more geared towards the yoga and the mindfulness and meditation, and then another one that will be martial arts. So it will be all women in there, women identifying folks and non-binary. And then we'll have about 10 office spaces for women to run their trauma-informed businesses. So we have massage therapists and acupuncture and like intuitive tattoos and apothecary. And then we have a little cafe space as well. So it's really a place where women can go and have their needs met and be able to show up in their whole raw self and fill their cup a little bit before they go back out.
That is just incredible, how this idea came to you. And first I want to talk about the name, Fire and Root. How did you come up with the name? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I was really attached to Warrior Women, but it was kind of just something where like, self-defense classes, that's what we'll call it. I went through the trademark process and learned that we had to rebrand, and oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. I think I went through like the 5 stages of grief a few times with the name. So I decided to go on a road trip with my dog, and I was like, I'm not coming back until I find a new name, which is a little dramatic, but
whatever works, right?
Yeah, it worked. I went out there, and my dog was there when I was assaulted 4 years ago, and him and I have, just a really lovely bond with that, and we've both healed together. So we were out in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I want to call home someday. Mm-hmm. And he kept bringing me these weird pine cones, and I'd like throw them back in the forest, and he kept bringing them back. And they were sealed with resin. And I love nature, like a bird watcher in training at this point. So I did a little research on these pine cones, and they grow in really high forest fire areas. And when a forest fire comes, the resin melts and they fall off the tree. And they only root and like fresh ash fertilized soil after a fire. And I was like, this is what every woman that comes to our classes has gone through, some shitstorm and fire. And they come out on the other side so rooted and grounded and showing up for themselves. And the resilience of women is forever impressive. And so I thought for way too long how to put that concept into a word, into a business name, and it was Fire and Root the whole time.
I think that is just absolutely perfect. It kind of reminds me of the story of the phoenix and how we, rise from the ashes. And I think that, yes, we go through these challenges, but there's beauty on the other side.
Exactly.
And I love that you are creating a safe space for us to come to be able to tap into a community that's going to be accepting and that is going to be nurturing and, again, allow us to become stronger in all different aspects. So I think that's amazing. Now, I haven't heard of something like this. Are there other collectives like this around, or this sounds to me like it's pretty groundbreaking?
Yeah, there are no other in Denver. We'll be the first. There are spaces like Blue Bench and the Gathering Place where women and children can go if they are in a hard spot. Okay. And for me, I created the space because you can go to those places, but you kind of have to have your survivor hat on. And when you're in your trauma, you don't always want to show up in it. Sure. And then when you go to like a yoga class or have a service like acupuncture done, you don't really know if that professional is trauma informed and where they're at on their journey. And so, yeah, it's important to me that we are both a place where you can show up as you are, and normalizing that fire and being able to come out a little bit rooted, hopefully, and just creating the ripple effect, because one person's nervous system dysregulation can really throw off so many people's days. So being able to support the community through that and build the women up.
And I love that you're really focusing on bringing people in that are specialists in the area of trauma, because trauma can look different for all different people. And I think for many years, we were sort of told to just kind of shove it down, and not recognize it. Or again, you have to just go to therapy. That's the only way you can deal with it.
We don't talk about that here.
We don't really talk about it. But now again, it's understanding that there is a process to this and a healing process, and you're going to be okay. And again, to come together as a community. And I had no idea that there was, certified people in yoga for trauma. And I just think it is so smart. And again, I just really applaud you, because I think very courageous for you to venture out. But again, it's talking about that alignment and talking about following your heart and your intuition. And it's just bringing you down a beautiful path.
Yeah, so. I mean, we're all surviving something at this point, so we might as well have those needs met. And yeah, once I started writing the business plan, it's like when you feel that in your gut and your core, and you're like, there's literally no other option for me at this point other than this business. And
so now I'm putting a business plan together. Again, we get the idea, and the idea looks great. Has there been anything that, in running a business that, you weren't prepared for, or that you didn't think about, that maybe someone out there who's thinking of starting her own business should start thinking about and bring in?
Yeah, so many things. So for me, I lead from my heart and my, intuition, and I have this big vision, and sometimes it gets a little bit big and I have to tone it down. Not tone it down, but organize it. And so in writing the business plan, just really like all of the numbers and the, P&L statements and all of that has been a huge learning curve for me. And I would say if somebody is starting a business, that it's okay to not know everything, because there are experts out there that can support you.
Yes.
And I felt like for the longest time, it was like kind of battling that imposter syndrome. Like I had to know everything. I had to do the payroll. I had to do, the QuickBooks and understand it all. And you don't have to. You have to find people that are aligned with your vision and can be in their truth and support you through that really boring stuff.
It's true, because there are experts in those fields. And again, when you're running a business, you want the best of the best in those areas.
And I don't want to be coming into this space with like a negative energy, especially towards money and finances. I want it to be a very abundant business. And so people that love numbers, I'm like, have at it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that that's hard for a lot of women. It's to ask for help. It's to say, oh, I don't really know about that area. But we have to start getting good at the fact that we need to be experts in our area, and again, let those people shine in the areas that they're experts. Because when we come together, it's about, again, going forward with the whole vision. And I love what you said about it's about finding people who align with your vision. And that's why I think it's so important that we start sharing our visions. And many times, and I don't know if you ran across this, but I know when I started sharing with people what I wanted to do, there were some people that thought I was crazy.
Sure. There will always be.
But the more that you talk about it, people start to see it. And then the right people start showing up to help you get there.
Yeah, the right people. I think that's the key. You're never going to appeal to everyone. And just like you can't do everything in your business. Yeah, so definitely. I think, just keep doing you and what feels right.
So first of all, when do you anticipate this collective being open?
I imagine late summer next year.
Okay, we'll put it out there. We'll manifest that.
Yes.
And, after you get this one up running successfully, is your vision to have more?
Absolutely. The wellness industry really lacks equitable professional opportunities, as does a lot of industries in the world. And so it's really important to me to be able to hold space for that and create more opportunity and more jobs in the wellness industry and paying women what they deserve and their worth. And so, yeah, expansion for sure. I'd love to have a couple in the Pacific Northwest. I'm from Michigan and Flint. I'd love to have one there in Chicago. But my goal is to have all of these women that we're working with be able to go and open a space if they want to.
Beautiful. Well, we want to support you on that vision.
Thank you.
So as you're looking through all the things that you've been able to accomplish and how you've grown, what would you say is something that you are most proud of?
For me, is speaking my truth. For a long time, I kind of played it small and was like, oh, I'm just doing this thing, you know, it's no big deal. But what we're doing is really important, and it is groundbreaking, and it is empowering, and it is creating a really positive impact. And being able, even just the classes that we hold right now, being able to see the effects of those and the ripple effect out in the world is so powerful. So just being able to like be in it and be comfortable having a successful business.
That's fantastic. Well, I know that as our viewers are watching this, there's going to be several that want to reach out to you. They might want to be part of the collective. They might want to find out more about it in supporting you. So what is the best way for our viewers to connect with you?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, Fire and Root Co. on there. Our website right now is still Warrior Women. Women is spelled with an X, and our new website will be up and running. So if people go to warriorwomen.com, they will still get transferred over to our new site anyway. And yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram, Austin Dempers, and email austin@warriorwomen.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad that you brought yourself in here and took time with me. I love learning more about your vision, and I love the connection that you're doing. I love what you are building, and just this message of unity and, you know, coming together, and again, really just understanding that we can come from our heart space and still be successful in everything that we're doing. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful to have you as one of my guests.
Thank you so much for this platform and opportunity and shining a light on all the amazing women. So, yeah.
For sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I hope you found great value. I know that I did in talking about our messages of running a successful business, even with the softer side of knowing that you are strong, you are beautiful, and the importance of speaking your truth and not playing small. So go get your visions and get out there and make those things happen. So you can watch this episode, all of the episodes, and get all of your clarity at www.claricaconley.com.